This is News 10 at 5:30. Live with Elisa Streeter and Chief Meteorologist Steve Caporizzo.
We report to you.
Police say an area man used harassment and threats to get money from a big area supermarket chain. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Ammerman in for Elisa Streeter tonight. It started with a case of workers' compensation involving Hannaford supermarkets. Then it escalated to a federal case involving extortion. 2 area men are in jail tonight for the alleged crime. News 10's Melissa Sander joins us now to explain. Melissa.
Steve, this matter started back in September 1996. That's when a Hannaford Markets employee claimed that he was injured on the job. Now, this is quite the story we have for you. William Niles of Colony says he was injured on the job working in the warehouse at Hannaford's distribution center in Schodack. For more than 2 years, he was paid workers' compensation, $400 a week. But after a doctor became suspicious and Niles didn't keep some medical appointments, the human resources woman handling the case at Hannaford had Niles followed by a private investigator. Surveillance tape showed Niles wasn't really injured and the payments were stopped by Hannaford. And that is when, according to the FBI and state police, Niles and his brother-in-law, Russell Johnston of Ballston Lake, began a campaign of harassment and threats to get more money. That allegedly includes threatening phone calls at work and sending things to the home of the woman's home, the human resource woman's home, such as a videotape of her children and husband and flowers with a note saying, "I'm sorry for your loss." Investigators arrested Niles and Johnston yesterday.
We felt that it was time to take action, and the investigation has been going on for the last year and a half, and we felt that the victim could be in danger, so we tried to bring it to an end.
We are told that the harassment began around March of 1999 and was continuing up until just recently when it escalated. That's why investigators stepped in and the federal charges. Now, according to the federal complaint, Hannaford Supermarkets paid for a 24-hour guard for quite some time on the home of this woman from the Human Resources Department, and also bought her a home security system, had that installed. The FBI says also that the private investigator, the one who first shot the videotape that showed that William Niles was not actually injured as he said he was, that private investigator was also a target. Evidently, his car and pool were vandalized. So again, William Niles and his brother-in-law, Russell Johnston of Ballston Lake, are in Albany County Jail. They will be back in federal court at the end of the week for a bail hearing. Steve.
All right, Melissa. Thank you very much. A drugged-up ambulance driver took 2 women hostage and then took them on a crazy ride through the streets of New York City. Both women had cerebral palsy and were on their way to the hospital when police say the driver, smoking crack cocaine, drove around for 8 hours with the women in the back. He also allegedly robbed them of $80, a cell phone, and jewelry before ditching the ambulance and the women in Brooklyn. The women were unhurt. The man is now charged with unlawful imprisonment and reckless endangerment. More police stings underway here in the capital region. This time, it's the Guilderland Police Department catching clerks for selling alcohol to underage kids. Out of 22 locations checked, 7 Guilderland stores sold liquor to a police undercover agent who was under the age of 21. Cited were clerks from Grolix on Carmen Road, the Exxon on Western Ave and Church Road, Cumberland Farms on Western Avenue as well. Other stores, Cowan and LaBelle and Stuyvesant Wine and Liquor, both in the Stuyvesant Plaza, the Carmen Getty on Carmen Avenue, and the Price Chopper at the 20 Mall. A highly controversial move by one of the nation's largest Protestant denominations. Women should not be pastors. Delegates at the Southern Baptist Convention's annual meeting in Orlando approved that and other revisions to its faith and message today. ABC's Dean Staley reports to you.
By a show of hands, church members representing 16 million Southern Baptists voted not to allow women to lead their churches.
Good morning.
That means people like 19-year-old Sarah Jobe, who hopes one day to lead a Southern Baptist congregation, may have to look outside the church to follow her faith.
I have a call to ministry. I have a call to preach, and that is a call that I cannot ignore.
During its annual convention, the nation's largest Protestant denomination moved even further to the right, adopting tough language against abortion and homosexuality.
These are definite doctrines that we believe are absolutely essential to Baptist identity. This is what it means to be a Christian. This is what it means to be a Baptist. This is what God's Word says, and this is where we're going to stand.
Demonstrators gathered outside the convention to protest the church's anti-gay position. More than 24 were arrested. But the biggest threat to the church may be attrition. Reverend Sue Enoch's congregation left the Southern Baptist Convention years ago. She warns this latest move to the right may push more Baptists away.
I've talked to friends of mine who pastor congregations who have already said this is the last straw and we will have to withdraw.
The church's decision isn't binding, and that means the roughly 100 Baptist churches across the country where women serve as pastors can remain part of the Southern Baptist Convention. The question now is whether they'll want to. Dean Staley, ABC News, Atlanta.
Taking a look at other world and national events, the Philippines have passed laws making it a crime to hack on the internet. New legislation comes after a Manila student allegedly created the love bug virus that affected more than 10 million computers worldwide, causing an estimated $1 billion in damage. New findings from the flight data recorder of Egypt Air Flight 990 now cast some doubt on whether the crash was caused by a suicidal pilot. According to an article on Aviation Week's internet site, the new information will be released to the public at the end of next month. 217 people died when the airliner crashed into the Atlantic last October, but so far no official cause has been released. And in California, a huge wildfire is racing through the wine country. Firefighters believe sparks from a car started the blaze in the Napa Valley. More than 2,800 acres have already burned, causing hundreds of people to be evacuated from their homes. Firefighters are having to deal with high winds and temperatures well over 100 degrees. And while we've been just saturated with rain, there's so many pockets of the country that are having droughts and hot, dry conditions.
But that's the way it usually turns out. It's usually one of those seesaws where one place gets a ton of rain, like obviously we've had around here, but other places get very little, and I don't see that changing for the rest of this week and into the weekend. In fact, the long-range weather computers, and you know, I don't want to put a bad spin on things, but we could very well get cloudy, cool, and wet again for several days early next week, so we'll see a little bit of improvement, and then it may go downhill again. Let's check that forecast for this evening. I mean, let's face it, today wasn't bad. I mean, it just wasn't warm and sunny, but we didn't have much, if any, rain. Just a trace of rain today, cloudy and cool in the 50s. Today's high temperature at 60. The low 50. We'll have much more in the forecast for you later in the newscast. And we have good news for about 2 days.
Hey, we'll take what we can get.
It will warm up.
Okay, good. Right, thanks, Steve. We'll be back with more of News 10 at 5:30 in just a minute. Coming up in our Medical Breakthroughs report, Tracy Egan examines a new way to look inside the body, making surgery safer and easier.
You're watching News 10 at 5:30.
We report to you.